for those that don't listen to the, what is it, Pro Football Exchange, the Draft Exchange? What the hell is your name?
NFL Stock Exchange.
NFL Stock, I don't know, it's a terrible name. It's a popular podcast with a terrible name.
What was it? Is it the Bets Pod, the Mets Pod?
I don't know what it is. The Jets. By the way, also, but you know, you need a scorecard to keep track of how many effing podcasts Connor Rogers does.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Happy Wednesday. Lawrence Jackson in the house alongside Matthew Berry, of course. Connor Rogers here doing one of my many podcasts.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you know which show this one is?
Yes.
Or which one is this?
This is the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, and it is keep it open or close it out.
Do you have
day.
like a cheat sheet? Do you have like a, you know how
I
like
should
on
wear the quarterback on.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So you
Got
can
a
just
play
look,
card.
okay, this is happy hour, and Lawrence is
It would
on
go
it.
a long way for me.
Yeah.
Happy hour on two, happy on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flip over. Okay, Mets off season.
How many podcasts do you actually do? Not counting the ones you guest on, you know.
Four.
Like four.
Weekly. Like
Four.
four different shows weekly.
Four
Put
different
that
shows
work in.
weekly. Not counting like, you know, Sims.
No.
Not counting like
when I fill in on Unbuttoned and stuff.
Yeah,
no.
when Chris Sims is like, I got no one else. Hey,
No, I'm
Connor,
the official
come on over.
co-host of four different podcasts.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So us, NFL Draft Exchange,
Yeah,
Stock
close enough. You're
Exchange,
getting there.
Stock
Yeah, you're
Exchange,
getting there.
PFF, Stock, whatever.
Yep, the
NFL
Mets
Stock
Pod. This is
Exchange.
an easy one for you. The
Mets
Mets Pod.
Pod. That's what it's
it.
called,
It's
the Mets
Mets
Pod?
Yes, because we were partnered with SMY, the official broadcast
Okay,
network.
fine. So you do a Mets Pod, yeah.
And then Badlands for the Jets.
And the Badlands for the Jets. Okay.
Simple enough.
I subscribe to all of them.
Yes.
Honestly, I don't care if you listen or not. You know,
No. Neither do we.
No, that's what I always say
Yes.
with Happy Hour. Just subscribe. I don't care if you listen. I just want the click. I just want the click. You don't need to listen.
Auto download.
Thank
we're
you.
good.
That's
Maybe
all
a
we're
5-star
asking.
review if you're feeling really, really generous.
Just the click.
5-star review and give me the click. And don't have to listen at all. That's all I'm asking.
All right, want to jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, keep it open or close it out. Headlined by Sam Darnold. It's been a rough go of it for Sam Darnold, and we got to hear former Jet, former Panther, all the hits, the greatest hits.
Former Niner.
Did you discuss him on Badlands, your Jets podcast?
Many times, not anymore though. Sam Darnold, it's been a tough go of it. 6.4 fantasy points last week at Jacksonville. We got to hear from his head coach Kevin O'Connell on Darnold's latest miscues.
As you get into the meat of the season, you start, you got to make sure you're on top of just every little detail of what is the play, where are my feet and eyes supposed to be, and how disciplined are you despite how the day is gone. And now you can really coach those things hard. I know Josh and Grant and myself will do that, and Sam will be right back to where we need him to be, which has been, leading this team for 7 wins this year, and there's a whole lot of football left that we're going to need him to continue to improve.
The good news is, Lawrence, Sam Darnold's not losing this job. The bad news is the matchup really doesn't get much better against this Tennessee defense that's been good this year.
Yeah, I really like that guy, Kevin O'Connell.
He's quite the coach.
Nice guy.
And tall.
He's tall. Yeah,
He likes your guy, Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. That was nice of him. Yeah. But I don't know if this matchup is nice for Sam Darnold. I'm gonna have to close it out. Weeks 1 through 4, Matthew, he was quarterback 5 in fantasy.
Yes.
You know what he been since? Quarterback 25.
Yeah, that's worse.
Yeah, that ain't good, especially against this Titans defense that has only allowed 3 top 10 quarterback fantasy finishes. That was Herbert, Josh Allen, Malik Willis. 2 of them guys had at least 30 yards and a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
So unless you could kind of see Sam Darnold, and he's capable of doing that, unless you could see him doing that, I don't like this matchup for him. 6 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions in his last 5 games. So this week, I'm going to have to close it out.
It does feel like teams have sort of caught up a little bit to Sam Darnold. I'm closing it out as well, Lawrence. Look, he has not been good on the road this year, averaging under 13 fantasy points a game when he is away from Minnesota. This game is in Tennessee. They have the number 1 pass defense this season, the Titans do. So they're good in the secondary as well. And look, the over-under in this one is 39.5. We're not expecting a ton of scores. And I don't have a stat for this, guys, but like when you can't do it on the road at Jacksonville, who had given up the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks going into that game, I don't have a lot of confidence that you can do it on the road at Tennessee that has a pretty good pass defense, has a pretty good secondary as well. Low-scoring game. He's my QB 18. I am, in fact, closing it out.
We move over to the running backs. Nick Chubb at New Orleans. He comes in as RB23 for you, Matthew. Under 6 points in 2 of his 3 games this season. We knew it was going to take a little while to get Nick Chubb back in the fold and rolling. But can you roll with Nick Chubb in a decent matchup against New Orleans?
I can, and I will.
Okay.
He's my running back 23 this week. I'm keeping it open on Nick Chubb. I get it. Hasn't been great so far, but off of the bye, 2 weeks to prepare for a matchup with the Saints, who are not good. Right. So far this year, they've allowed multiple touchdowns to running backs or I should say multiple rushing touchdowns. Some of them have been to QBs, but multiple rushing touchdowns in 5 of the past 6 games. You can run on the Saints. They give up 5.2 yards per carry to opposing running backs. That is the most in the National Football League. And so Nick Chubb, who's getting a bunch of the work, as you see in the last 3 games in terms of their touches, 42 rushes for Chubb, 14 for the rest of the running backs combined. He's had 75% of the Browns' running back rushes since they've come back as well. I think off of the bye, in the Jameis Winston revenge game against the Saints. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Nick Chubb gets in the end zone. He's my running back 23, keeping it open on Chubby.
You mentioned them allowing multiple rush touchdowns in 5 of their past 6 games.
Yes, sir.
And some of those are quarterbacks. Well, look at this. Just to running backs,
Okay.
they've allowed a single running back to have 2 rushing touchdowns and 3 out their last 4 games, right?
Damn.
They're a bottom 3 team as far as allowing fantasy points per game to running backs goes. And we saw Nick Chubb, we saw his snap percentage go down a little bit, but that's because their last time out, they was getting blown out by the Chargers, so that gave way to Jerome Ford, right? But I don't see that as the case against this Saints defense, who they're already beat up on that side. They just traded away their best DB, so I'm going to leave it open on Nick Chubb as well, who's had at least 15 carries in these last 2 games.
Yeah, for sure. They're beat down emotionally. And this feels like
I don't even see how they beat them. Like, what was the Falcons doing to even lose to his team?
You're the Falcons fan. You tell me.
I ain't the Falcons coach, though.
I know, but you're the Falcons fan. You're the Falcons representative.
I
on
was
this
way
team.
out there in Houston when they were playing. I ain't had nothing to do with that.
Bird down.
Yeah,
Bird down.
them birds
Bird
got
down.
shot down.
Does it feel like to you guys, or is it Wednesday and just the hype hasn't gotten there yet? But Winston going back to New Orleans feels a little Brady returning to New England, right? Kind of the same vibe.
I would put on the same platform.
Yeah.
just like
feels,
it.
Just feels like, very
Two greats.
Two greats,
Yeah.
just like an iconic quarterback and an iconic franchise tied together for so many years.
Jameis might be able to build it up that way. Focus on the pregame speech.
He could build it up like that without trying.
Right.
Like, inadvertently just build it up like that.
Alexander Mattison, our next
we
running
love
back.
Jameis here.
Yes,
All right.
indeed.
Yes, yeah.
Our next running back, Alexander Mattison, he's got the Dolphins, 9 touches in his last game. That's the fewest for him since week 4, Lawrence. It felt like this backfield was really getting him going after moving on from Zamir White, but now it starts to trend the other way. Can you ride another week with Alexander Mattison?
Yeah, just first off, how the way that the Dolphins defense has been playing, their last 3 running back matchups versus Kyron Williams, running back 21, James Cook, running back 27, James Conner, running back 19, and he scored a touchdown. Are all 3 of them dudes better than Alexander
By a
Mattison?
mile.
The crowd says yes. So I'm going to have to close on Alexander Mattison. Another thing, too, he ain't scored a touchdown since week 6. That's tough. You got Amir Abdullah getting some run in there too, Matt.
Yeah, and that's the point. You think about their last game that we saw them before the bye, right? Alexander Mattison got 9 touches. Amir Abdullah got 7. Zamir White got 6, including the touchdown. And so we don't know what Luke Getsy has been fired, and so we don't know what Scott and Norv Turner are going to do with this offense. It's a lot of variance here. They could go back to Mattison. He gets a ton of work. They could go back to Zamir White. It could be a 3-headed monster. Either way, there's just too much uncertainty here, especially, as you mentioned, Lawrence, on the road at Miami, a West Coast team traveling east for a 1 o'clock game, and this is not a good matchup. Dolphins over the last month have allowed the 8th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. So again, pick a stat, but Miami's good against the run. Las Vegas has not been able to establish the run, and it might be a multi-headed committee here. He's my running back 30. I too am closing it out.
We move over to the pass catchers, and we start with Davante Adams against the Colts. He's got under 10 points in 3 of his 4 games with the Jets. It has not been pretty. We got to hear from Adams this week on the offense trying to turn things around.
just executing at the right times. And when I say the right times, I mean going down and obviously we had started the game with a couple. We didn't have very many possessions in the first half, period. So making the ones count, scoring touchdowns. So that's on us as the offense is putting it in, but you're not going to score every time. So that's the part where we got to come together, and obviously they got to do what they got to do on the other side of the ball to help us in those situations where we don't get hurt. When we end up with points, and it's a tough game, man. You gotta have all phases working together, and we didn't have that today.
Matthew, it felt like things turned the corner for Davante after the Texans game, but then things went right back plummeting against Arizona. Can you still roll with Davante?
There was a lot of talk where he's sort of blaming the offense, but then he started blaming the defense.
I like the turning point.
Yeah, did you play that quote on Badlands, your Jets podcast?
We don't play locker room sound, but we do play locker room sound on Jets postgame.
Interesting. Okay,
Yes.
So did you discuss that quote?
We discuss basically every sound, yeah.
Okay.
But
there's
been a huge problem with finger pointing with
What do
this
you
team.
say for the people that are going to download but not actually listen?
Well, it's not a podcast; it's a TV show.
Okay, whatever. Who can keep track of all your media obligations?
The Jets have
I barely follow you on Twitter. I'm just asking you. Like, what do you? Come on. What was your reaction?
I mean, they just finger point all the time. It's not. You're higher on Davante Adams than me. You have him wide receiver 12. I think he's trending towards a guy that I don't want to start in fantasy unless I have to.
I guess I'm just, I'm bullish about the matchup against the Indianapolis Colts, right? Wide receivers that have seen at least 7 targets against the Colts this year, your Colts, Lawrence Jackson, they average over 15 fantasy points per game, 15.1 if you see 7 targets and you're a wide receiver playing the Colts, right? And so over the last 2 weeks, Davante Adams does have 24 targets. He's got a 37% target share. Like Aaron Rodgers is trying to get his buddy involved. He's looking for him more often. Garrett Wilson's been the more productive fantasy wide receiver, but certainly there's been a lot of looks for Davante Adams. And again, given the matchup with Indianapolis, right? He did have 3 end zone looks as well last week. Like they're trying to get him a touchdown. I have Davante Adams at wide receiver 12. Jets are favored in this game. Yeah. Connor Rogers.
Again.
So I am, again.
Always favored Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's I think you gotta bank on Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed against Joe Flacco. Yeah. Like Joe Flacco is the human interception, and so he's interception waiting to happen. Now he's got to go against the Jets secondary, which I know has struggled and hasn't played as well as we expect him to, but it's still
this their chance to bounce back.
They'll be better. They'll be better against the Colts. I don't know if the Jets win this game because they always find a way to lose, but I do think Davante Adams has a good fantasy day, whether it's a winning or losing effort. Top 12 play for me. I'm keeping it open on number 17, Lawrence, but Connor hates him.
This quarterback matchup would have been sick in 2013.
Ah, man, who you telling?
Yeah.
It's good today, too, but for like another reason, if you like comedy or something like that. But look, Matthew,
It's like, listen, first off, you can't be sitting here dogging old guys. Right, okay, look, we're in an era where the
I'm
Golden
probably
Bachelor,
older than both of them.
Yeah, well, I know I am, for sure. But listen, the Golden Bachelor, there's
right.
a renaissance here for us older folks. So,
but see, you only old if you playing football. If you doing what we do, just sitting up here talking like we can actually do what they do, and we young.
Yeah, I'm young and sprightly.
That's
right.
right.
Make no mistake.
We ain't got to do no athletic movements.
Yeah, I mean, as the great Jimmy Buffett once said, I'm growing older, but not up. I'm still immature.
I'm going to keep it open, too. The Colts defense has played better, but they're still giving it up in the passing game. They let Mac Hollins go for 4 catches, 86 yards.
Mac Hollins catching strays.
I'm just saying, he don't even wear
After
shoes.
a great performance.
Mac
He don't wear shoes.
Hollins is a solid wide receiver.
That's his best game since week 3 of 2022.
He's not a fantasy asset.
2022?
Yeah.
Ain't he? Oh yeah, too. Justin Jefferson, he went off against them, but that's expected. But Jordan Addison was a top 20 wide receiver. He hasn't been doing good.
That's
so
fair.
It's the only time he was, right?
Yeah, that's his best game of the season.
Yeah, I'll let Jordan Addison catch a stray. That's fine.
So, I mean, Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson should be, live to have a solid game.
How about Tank Dell
And it would
against
make
the
the most
Cowboys?
sense in the world that the Jets would win this game, and then there's hope only to get dashed the following week.
Yeah,
and
hope at 4-7 though is tough. you're really holding on to something at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's usually how it goes. They beat the Texans.
Hey,
Yeah.
hope
They get
is
blown
how,
out by Arizona.
Hope is how most of us go on every day.
That's right, Lawrence.
It's hope.
You got to
Yeah.
find something.
No, I go to bed every night with hope. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe the Jets actually play with a big enough lead that Anthony Richardson gets back into this game.
That's not gonna happen.
That's hope.
If he ain't in by now, he ain't getting back
Yeah,
in.
that's fair.
He
That
ain't
is
getting
fair.
in.
It's tough. Do you talk about Anthony Richardson on what is
They
it?
should
Draft-
talk about
draft
trading
Stock
for him.
exchange.
They
Draft
should talk about
exchange.
trading for him. The
stock
Jets.
market.
Yeah, we do talk about Anthony Richardson. How it was not very smart to bench him.
Yeah.
What are you learning from this? You're
Fair
losing
enough.
with Joe Flacco. But what are you going to do?
What are you gonna do?
Tank Dell
What are you
against the
gonna do?
Cowboys, under 40 receiving yards in 3 of his past 4 games. Lawrence, this was supposed to be Tank Dell's time why Nico Collins was on the IR. Just hasn't really worked out that way.
Yeah, nah, but you know what? Hopefully,
He was open in the end zone. Damn it! Like throw the ball, CJ Stroud.
What we've said recently though is like, oh, no Nico Collins, so this is his time. But I think Nico Collins coming back will help this young man. He in these past 2 games, he still had 28.5% of the targets here. Look, the Dallas Cowboys allowed 3 different wide receivers to score against them. A.J. Brown went 5 catches for 109. And again, this is the Dallas Cowboys. There's 2. We just talked about the Jets. You got the Jets, the Cowboys, and the Colts. Those are 3 teams that's really just hurting overall right now. So if any time for Tank Dell to get back is this week against the Cowboys. He just had a good game a couple weeks ago, 126 yards, so I'm going to leave it open.
He could have had and should have had a good game against Detroit. Stroud just, couldn't pull the trigger. They haven't played together without Stephon Diggs, right? Assuming Nico Collins is active, this will be the first game this year that Nico and Tank play together, but no Stephon Diggs. But you think about last year, there were 9 games in which Nico Collins and Tank Dell played together. And in those games, to your point, Lawrence, Dell averaged 16.2 fantasy points per game. Like, I do think Nico Collins can hopefully free up some stuff for Tank Dell. They'll take some shots, Tim, as well. And I'll just say this. It's Dallas, right? Over their past 4 games, the Cowboys have allowed 6 touchdowns to wide receivers, 6 and 4. So I think there's a chance that Tank and Nico each get into the end zone in a game in which they're heavily favored as well. I'm at wide receiver 31. He's a low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4, but I'm keeping it open on Tank Dell in 12-team or deeper leagues.
That Dallas defense is expected to be on the field a lot. Could be
A
good
lot.
news for the Texans. That's the Cooper
Yeah.
Rush show.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett against the 49ers, 5 straight games with 4.
Have you thought about starting like a Cowboys podcast too? Like, do you
No,
think- do you
that's
think-
one field I'm not going
Do
into.
you think? Well, I mean,
Jets
you,
and Cowboys, I'd be beyond
Well,
miserable.
but you're sort of like that could be your thing. Like, listen, you've got a Mets podcast and you've got a Jets podcast, and you do this damn thing. So, like, it feels like dysfunctional franchises are sort of your thing. That could be your niche.
People would just think you like pain.
Yeah,
That's fair. To be fair, though, the Cowboys won 12 games 3 straight years in a row recently.
Yeah,
Like
but
that would be like the pinnacle of my sports fandom life.
1,000%. But
Right.
every year they disappoint. The
That's
point is their pain is just as much as Jets' pain because they don't expect to.
They get your hopes built
They get
up
your
and
hopes.
then they let you
It's
down.
Like, right, I would, for the many years that I was in the desert with my Washington pro football team, it was great because, like, it'd be like middle of October, and I'm like, we're done. Good, I don't need to sweat this. Like,
Right.
what's the Bane quote? There can be no despair without hope, right? Like when you're, he's looking up at the, right, that's the thing. Like, that, I mean, Cowboys fans and Jets fans actually have much greater despair than like, like whatever. I'm trying to think of a good franchise here. Like the Jaguars or whatever. They're just like, well, we know we're going to be bad this year. It is what it is, right? They had hopes this year, but like sometimes, right? Teams that like this is not going to be our year.
Yeah. Trying to think of a real good one. I mean, the Browns for a while didn't have a lot to hope for.
No, I mean, I think the fans knew, but the front office thought that Deshaun Watson was an answer. But like of the Giants, right? It's, like again, when I was with Washington and Snyder was owning the team and Bruce Allen was in charge, I was just like,
It's never going to get better.
Who cares?
Yeah.
It's never going to get better. I don't matter. It's good. Okay, good. I'm done in week 5. Great, fantastic. Let me just focus on my fantasy teams. Honestly, like I'm having not as good a fantasy year this year as I traditionally do because my Commanders are so good. I've been more engaged with the
Less
Commanders.
focus.
Less focused. Yeah, damn right.
How do you think I started doing the draft for
Yeah.
a living? Jets
sure.
season's over before Halloween every year. On to the draft.
1,000%.
how
So
it
I'm
goes.
just saying. I think this could be something for you. This is an opportunity, like dysfunctional franchises,
Well, that's why we
Like,
started a
just-
draft podcast.
yeah.
That's all we talk about is bad teams.
bad teams.
Right.
What about like? But
they
you could have
pick
like
first.
offshoots. You could be offshoots. What about like the Colts? Colts could be a good team. The Jaguars, the Giants do have a Giants podcast too.
Giants are
Colts will actually
You know what you
be a
should do?
great one from
You should-
like the past 10 years, the Colts. That'd be interesting with the Andrew
basically
Luck
the
thing
Ballard
and all
era.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Lawrence? What if Connor did a Giants podcast, but like in a different voice and under a different name, and all he did on the Giants podcast was MF, his Jets podcast, and then on the Jets
Create a
podcast,
fake rivalry?
create a fake rivalry between
probably
your
a good
Jets
idea.
podcast and your Giants podcast, and just go back and forth and just say like the most awful stuff about yourself back and forth, and try to
build two fan bases on each
Yes,
side.
exactly.
It's a
You'd
good business model.
be instead of Connor Rogers, you'd be Roger Kahn.
There you go.
Ooh, I like that.
Flip the names.
Yeah.
Flip the names.
You guys might be
Yeah,
onto something.
I'm just
It's
saying.
a good business model.
Yeah, something to think about.
When,
maybe, and maybe invite Emmy Award-winning Todd Zeal onto
Maybe.
one or both
Yes,
of them.
No idea why, but sure.
Sure.
Maybe when this show ends, that's my backup plan.
Yeah, just something to think about.
All right, Tyler Lockett against the 49ers.
I'm full of ideas.
He's 5
Lawrence,
straight
you're on board
games.
with this, right?
The Roger Kahn.
Yeah,
part?
the Roger Kahn,
definitely,
Connor Rogers.
Yeah.
They hate each other, the
Roger
two
Kahn.
podcasts.
Tyler Lockett coming off the bye. He hasn't had a game.
You could call the Giants podcast Worse Lands.
I got nothing left on this.
You got Worse Lands.
There you go.
Because your Jets podcast is called Badlands,
But they
right?
also play in Jersey, so it could just
You
be
must
another
gonna
No,
be
but
the,
worse
you must gonna be the
lands.
co-host on one of these.
No, Lawrence.
You gotta be in it
Hear what I'm
because
saying
it's your
here.
idea.
No, I understand, but it's Badlands and then Worse Lands because again, they're just taking a direct aim at you.
That's fair.
I'm just telling you. I
then
got
we
the whole
fake
marketing
sue them
plan
for copyright
I
and-
got the whole marketing plan worked out. Oh yeah, suing yourself for copyright would be amazing and get all the
I
publicity.
can't lose.
No, you can't lose.
Can't lose.
And he's off.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Okay, fine.
You want to talk about Tyler Lockett?
Yeah, I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
close it out.
It's probably a good idea at this point. It's been a
gonna
while
close it out.
since he's been good in fantasy.
Yeah, and it's crazy too. I would say, let's say DK Metcalf comes back this week, I'm definitely closing it out. If he doesn't, I don't really feel much better about the situation because he hasn't done anything with DK Metcalf being out. And just some crazy little number, as you see on the screen there, the past 2 games for Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Tyler Lockett hasn't had a 100-yard receiving game since week 13 of 2022. It's almost 2 seasons ago. So I'm going to close it out, man. JSN last week, showed why they drafted him in the first round. He's going to be he's moving into that 1A, 1B guy with DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett seemed like he's slowly getting phased out. Now watch him go for 150.
I met Tyler Lockett once, and I have to tell you something. Really nice guy. Incredibly nice, thoughtful guy. Incredibly nice. I think we actually interviewed. Did we interview him once at the Super Bowl? I feel like 2 years ago, I feel like.
I don't think I was at that one.
2 years ago. So he's a friend of the podcast. So I have to tell you, Tyler Lockett, super nice guy. I've now exhausted myself of all the nice things I can say about Tyler Lockett. Because, to your point, Lawrence, even with DK Metcalf out, he had an 11% target share. The last 2 weeks, DK Metcalf's not even there, and he's got an 11% target share. So he's not earning targets with Metcalf out. We expect Metcalf back this week. Week 4, as you pointed out, the last time that he's had a game with more than 4 receptions. And you don't even like this matchup against the Niners. I feel like the Niners always play well against Seattle. And, in fact, their secondary has played very well over the last 4 weeks. They allow the 9th fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. So you're like, well, DK Metcalf's probably going to get some. And again, JSN is starting to emerge. So it's just hard to see a path to fantasy success for Tyler Lockett, barring like some big play, which can always happen. But we're playing odds here. He's my wide receiver 48 this week. I'm closing it out. I am with Lawrence. But again, if you ever meet Tyler Lockett, he is a lovely guy. He's a really nice guy. I just don't know that he's going to have a lot of fantasy production this week.
Maybe they're not as lovely as Tyler Lockett, but most of these guys are probably nice dudes. I think. I don't know. I don't talk to as many of them as you do.
I mean, I will. For the most part, they are. There's been a couple of guys that I just did not like.
Like Nick Chubb, I met him before.
Yeah.
Nice as hell.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I'm keeping it open on him this
Yeah,
year.
fair enough. No, I mean, I interviewed Nick Chubb once too. Yeah, same thing. Good guy. Most of them are very nice, and also, by the way, most of the time that you meet them, especially at least for me, it's a one of two situations. Number one is I either meet them when I'm interviewing them, so they're on. Like they're not going to try to be a jerk, when cameras are around or anything like. Or I meet them at some sort of industry event, like when I was at ESPN, I would meet them at a lot of different events, or like stuff that I've done for NBC, where you meet them like at advertiser events. And again, same sort of thing. They're like in a public forum, they're on, and so you want them. They generally want to be nice people. By the way, when you're a football player, like, it's hard not to be nice because basically much of your existence is just like, dude, you're awesome. Like when fans are coming up, you know what I mean? Like fans will be like keyboard warriors and they'll say mean stuff online.
Yes.
But like when you approach a football player, from the football player's perspective, when somebody comes up to you, 99.9% of the time, it's like, dude, I'm a fan. I have my fantasy team. I love the Jets, the Commanders, the Eagles, whatever your team is, right? And I love that game when you did blah 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 whatever.
You go to their tweets.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's a different story behind that keyboard.
Yeah, 1,000%. But generally, they're all very nice. Have you ever had a player that was rude?
I really only have one. I won't drop their name on air, but it was the toughest can be phone interviews. At my old job, I used to do a lot of phone interviews for the draft or for the NFL and stuff like that. And you never want to judge someone by a phone interview because it's just weird.
Tough.
It's like radio. Only one, though. And keep in mind, I've interviewed now for NBC about 30 guys at the Combine each year.
You do a ton of
them.
them.
That's the best because they're still kids coming into the NFL.
Yeah.
So much excitement. I would call it like 99%.
Yeah.
Like really nice, down-to-earth people.
I would just like to
Which
point
is
out
like
again.
anything on earth.
Again, I just want to point this out to the audience at home. Yeah, you've gotten to interview like 30 kids a year, thanks to NBC. Is Draft Exchange sending anywhere? Is Badlands? No. But NBC. But that's all right. You keep cheating on us. That's fine.
Well, this is my full-time job.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Right.
It's about time.
Yeah.
I'll give you one.
Spend my full-time job for 2 years.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I should really read memos.
Yeah.
Lawrence, I really got to start reading my email. You understand what I'm talking about here? I've had one. I've had one that, like, and it wasn't like he wasn't like mean. He was just kind of jerkish.
You always remember the one. That's what I'll say. Because like I said to you, I've won.
Yeah. I'll say mine because I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care, especially because, by the way, he's not in the NFL anymore. Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen was not pleasant to me. It was not a pleasant interview.
Was this rookie premiere?
Rookie premiere.
That's even worse.
Right, I know.
How can you
That's
not?
the thing. Like, rookie premiere is so great because all the rookies are there, and it's a great event.
It's a great event. It's exciting.
The NFLPA, it's the first time they get to see their jerseys, right? They're there with sponsors, and so, hey, it's a chance for these rookies to earn money. It's like all the NFLPA official sponsors, the NFL official sponsors, so they come there and they do content for this brand and that brand and this brand and that brand, like Bud Light, which was sponsored for so many years, like they that kind of stuff. And so or DraftKings, like our friends at DraftKings, like DraftKings will be there and do content with the players. And so like they're getting paid and they're seeing, like it's just a fun, easy atmosphere, and like everyone is great. And just for whatever reason, like that dude woke up on the wrong side of the bed that morning.
Interesting
like,
how that turned out.
Yeah, he was.
All
anyway.
right. Well, back to keep it open or close it out. A nice guy, Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, sure. I've never met Dallas.
Senior Bowl, many years ago. Dallas Goedert against the Commanders here. Lawrence comes in as tight end 11 for Matthew. 2 catches on 3 targets in his first game back at the Cowboys.
Yeah, and I don't really pay that no mind. Hey, he did get in the end zone, but we won't pay no mind because, Dallas was putting the belt to the tail. I'm sorry, Dallas was getting the belt to their tails from the Eagles, so they didn't have to do much after that. This over-under is 48.5. That's tied for the second highest in Week 10 in this Eagles and Commanders game. So you expect that the Eagles offense will need a little bit more out of Dallas Goedert, Davante Smith, guys like that. So I'm going to leave this one open for Dallas Goedert against the Commanders.
I agree with you, Lawrence. I think Dallas Goedert will play very well in a losing effort for the Eagles on Thursday night against my Commanders. Hail the Commanders, hail victory. I think what you like about Dallas Goedert is that at least the health has been an issue this year. But when he's been healthy, he's getting looks. Like he is earning targets in his healthy games this season. He's got a 22% target share, right? 2 end zone targets last week for him as well. It's worth noting that my Commanders have given up 3 touchdowns to tight ends in just their last 2 games. So I do think Dallas Goedert, especially given the state of the position, I'm keeping it open on him. He's a top 12 play for me this week. He comes in at tight end 11. Dallas Goedert again. Good game in a losing effort for the Eagles on Thursday night.
To recap,
that's what I'm hoping.
Matthews, keep it open, close it out ranking. Sam Darnold, QB 18 against the Titans, that's a close. Nick Chubb against the Saints, RB 23 stays open. Alexander Mattison against the Dolphins, RB 30, that's a close. Davante Adams against the Colts, top 15 play stays open, good matchup. Tank Dell against the Cowboys, wide receiver 31, a risky open. Tyler Lockett at the 49ers, wide receiver 48, that's a close. Dallas Goedert against the Commanders, you heard it. Tight end 11 stays open. Let's jump into the Rotoworld player news. For all your player news, go to NBCSports.com. And good news, guys. Isiah Pacheco designated to return from IR. That's right.
They get ugly for them other teams.
And so Isiah Pacheco managers, in small letters, you guys drink for free. Like, you've sat
Helps on
there
the
and
way.
watched Chris McCaffrey come back and all these other guys. You're just like, what's going on? I lost my little Pacheco. And so Isiah Pacheco, who was on the short list for ride or die, and it was looking good for 2 games there where he had at least 15 fantasy points in both the games he played this season. And then, of course, injury, and I was just like, whoa, glad I didn't take him as my ride or die. But, look, the way you've seen how much fantasy production you've gotten out of Kareem Hunt this entire time just feels like Pacheco, who's a better version. It's just younger, better than Kareem Hunt. Does he get the full workload as soon as he's back? Hard to say, because Kareem Hunt, I think, has probably earned himself a role.
He's been good.
He's been good, but still, as soon as Pacheco is back, you're starting him. We'll see if he returns this week against the Bills. I don't know, but
I think
they've opened the window.
Last week, I saw something that said he was targeting a late November return. So we in the middle of November now. So
ramping him back up.
Yeah. So
it's a huge game
Fantasy
against the Bills,
playoffs.
though. So there may be, I think it depends on when he gets out there, how he feels. Like, so we'll track that story. But if Pacheco isn't playing this Sunday, he's coming soon. And so just great news for all of us that have hung on to Pacheco for so long. So yes.
Some more
Great. Welcome
positive
back.
injury news on a lower scale. Adam Thielen with that hamstring, he's designated to return from IR. This is from Joe Person, who covers the Panthers for a while now. The Panthers activate Adam Thielen from IR a few hours before his window was set to close. Thielen hasn't played since injuring his hamstring in Week 3, diving to catch an Andy Dalton touchdown pass at Vegas.
Wow.
He was Bryce Young's
Andy
favorite.
Dalton catching a stray in a tweet.
That's tough. He was Bryce Young's favorite target last year with 103 catches for over 1,000 yards. It's just how quickly we forget, Lawrence.
Yeah, he had with Bryce Young, Adam Thielen was a top 10 fantasy receiver for the first 10, 11 weeks last season. That's almost the whole fantasy season. So you kind of feel like if Bryce Young could get him back, Bryce Young's already playing. He took a step up. He's not destroying teams, but they've gotten 2 wins in a row. Now, if you get the veteran back in there, this could possibly be like, you can see Adam Thielen can come in there and give you 7 for 75, and he could be fantasy relevant just like that.
Maybe. I mean, we'll see. Panthers are on a bye this week, obviously, so they have a week to kind of integrate him into the offense. I feel like a lot of the production last year for Thielen was just because he was the only guy.
Yeah.
And so how much does he have left at this stage? And then you also think he's competing for targets with Xavier Legette, with Jalen Coker, and Jatavian Sanders, too, honestly. And Chuba Hubbard's been really good, too, in working out of the backfield. So it's a smaller note. I mean, it's worth noting. I mean, he did have a 26% target share with Thielen last year, but again, I think that was just more a circumstance of who else they had out there. I would think, barring some news where you hear something that Dave Canales came out and said, like, he's going to be the focal point or whatever.
that ain't gonna happen.
I would still rank them Legette, Coker, Thielen in the first game out. That would
First game out, especially after a hamstring.
Yeah.
I would say this: Adam Thielen could probably still get open better than any of them guys.
Yeah, maybe,
for what it's worth.
Especially, by the way, if they, they decide to, focus on, I mean, I don't know. I've lost my train of thought here.
It'll help Bryce Young to have him. That's what I know.
It's a comfort.
Yeah, it'll give
more
him.
of a safety blanket for sure. But I'm just like, like if you're Dave Canales, we're trying to build something. We've got a little bit of momentum with Bryce Young, and so like Leggett, Sanders, Coker,
right
Hubbard, who they just signed to a big deal. Like that's your youth core that you're going to start, and Thielen's not part of the future, and so I don't know.
They traded Deontay Johnson, which speaks to even more to that. Yeah.
One more bit of news here, guys. Trevor Lawrence.
Had Thielen been healthy, he'd have been traded as well.
That's what I thought. It's kind of surprising he's still there. It just came down to that hamstring that we don't know how it's going to turn out. Our last bit of news, Trevor Lawrence is going to be out this week. He has an injury to his non-throwing shoulder. We'll see if this lingers beyond this week. It definitely could. Some more injuries we're tracking here, guys.
And by the way, just very quickly on the Lawrence thing, I have no confidence in any Jaguar. Tank Bigsby also banged up. Like, they're on the road at Detroit. They're almost 2 touchdown underdogs on the road here. Mac Jones just didn't inspire a ton of confidence last week against Minnesota. On the road to Detroit, I can't imagine starting any Jaguar player with confidence.
It's scary.
Like, you're not starting Parker Washington. You're not starting Brian Thomas Jr.
Because Brian Thomas, we was like, oh, yeah, it's Brian Thomas. It ain't. Now
it's been a couple of bad games. It's been a couple of bad games for Brian Thomas Jr.
And it got worse this time.
Maybe Evan Ingram, I guess, just because it's tight end is such a
short area throws.
But, yeesh. I don't know. This is dicey. Dicey.
All right, let's look at the injuries we're tracking heading into the weekend. We'll have more updates as we get practice reports throughout the week on these. Brian Robinson, as he often is, he's getting in limited work. He's probably going to come down to a game-time decision. We will see, and that's a short week, Brian Robinson. Keep that in mind. So that's going to be a real coin flip on Thursday night. Najee Harris is dealing with an ankle, although he expects to be okay. Nico Collins should finally make his return this week after the hamstring injury. DK Metcalf still dealing with the knee. Amari Cooper with the wrist injury. The Bills also dealing with an injury to Dalton Kincaid with his knee. That could be a game-time decision. Sam Laporta has that shoulder injury we discussed. George Kittle with a hamstring. Michael Pittman has been dealing with a back injury all season long. It's just a matter of if they'll keep him out week after week. We're going to take our first break here in just a second, guys. The Stars are out in Los Angeles for Sunday Night Football when Justin Herbert and the Chargers host Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Tune in to NBC at Peacock at 7 p.m. Eastern as we lead you up to kickoff in Southern California. Who's Eatin Good is next. Is it time to set and forget Cortland Sutton in your starting lineups? We'll discuss.
I'm here with Tennessee Titans rookie quarterback Will Levis, and I was just asking you off camera for a second, do you play fantasy football? And you said, yes, sir, I do.
I've been playing for probably 12 years now.
All right.
Yeah. We don't play for anything, just for fun, but I mean, one league in particular that's been going for a strong 9 years in a row now.
Now, who's in this league?
Just all of the dudes that I went into my freshman year of high school with. So,
okay.
So we try to make the loser do something every year. We don't always get them to do it, but it's always fun.
Have you ever
time.
finished last?
Never. No,
okay,
no.
Well, that's good.
Who's Eatin Good? Served by Applebee's. That was Will Levis, Matthew.
By
a
the
guy
way,
that does not finish last in fantasy football.
He does not finish last in fantasy football. He's playing better. And by the way, you want to talk about a nice guy. That guy is like an awesome, awesome dude. For sure. He grew up in Connecticut, so high school Connecticut athlete. And after the interview, I mentioned to him, I said, oh, my son, by the way, is playing in the state championship for lacrosse. You know what I mean? You guys remember when I was talking about that. He's like, and he did a video just to hype up. Hey, he's like, us Connecticut high school athletes got to stick together. Like, he just did like
he's authentically a good dude.
He's authentically a very good dude. So I'm always going to root for Will Levis. And I was encouraged by how he played last week. You know, I thought he looked pretty good, Lawrence, as well. Like, so you see here, you look at his passing chart here from Next Gen Stats, and you know, he was taking some deep shots. He was moving all over. Like, this is pretty good. 18 of 23, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Played very, very well. Also getting a little bit of fantasy production with his legs. He 5 for 41. He's now had at least 35 rushing yards in 3 of his 5 full fantasy games this year. It's a tough matchup against Minnesota, though, guys. That's one of my concerns. Vikings allow the 7th fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So it'll be a test for Will Levis, but I think if you are a Titans fan, if you're Brian Callahan, you have to be encouraged by what you saw from Levis last week.
I like the fact that he got better, right? He got better. And shout out to the Titans for, even though he hasn't played well.
Remember them.
Always remember the Titans. Shout out to them for letting him play. Even though he didn't start out the season good, backup quarterback comes in and actually plays decent.
Right.
They let Will Levis keep on playing. Unlike some other teams in the AFC South.
Yeah.
With their veteran quarterback who ain't even playing good. So shout out to the Titans for allowing Will Levis to actually get better. Look, there was some things football-wise, Will Levis and them, they going to look at the tape, they be like, we got to clean this up.
Yeah.
But he ain't turned the ball over, and he was doing a lot of that. And you mentioned the rushing. They had some design runs in there for Will Levis. One of them was on the 3rd and 2, so they're figuring out how to put their young quarterback in the best position for him to succeed. And for that, man, I am happy for Will Levis.
By the way, I'll also say this about Will Levis. Again, like, you can say I'm not objective, fair enough, but, like, awful offensive line, and they trade away DeAndre Hopkins, who was hurt at the beginning of the year. Like, he's got Calvin Ridley and not much else on that team. So he doesn't have a ton of weapons either protecting him or in the passing game as well. It was nice to see him get Ridley involved last week. So and they took some shots there. So he's my QB 25 this week. But I think to the extent that you have Calvin Ridley, to the extent you have Tony Pollard, maybe Tajay Spears in a slightly deeper league, like I think you're encouraged by what you saw out of Will Levis. And certainly Will Levis is now on the in a superflex league, like the League of Assholes. Yeah, I think he's.
I'm starting him in the League of Assholes. I need you to come through because I just lost to Connor Rogers right here. Wow. So Will Levis, come through for your boy.
Yeah. What about? Hey, by the way, I got an idea. What if you and I, Lawrence,
trade Will Levis for Jaden Daniels?
No, I'm going to pass on that opportunity, but thank you for it. It's very kind.
It's a nice offer.
No, I was going to say, like, what if you and I start the Worst Lands podcast? We start the Worst Lands podcast, and in theory, it's about the Giants, but we never actually talk about the Giants. All we do is crap all over Connor and the Badlands podcast. That's entirely, and we play clips of it and we make fun of them, and literally that's Worst Lands is entirely about just mocking Badlands.
So just be like, well, look at what this guy said.
Yeah,
you talking about like that type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It depends.
Yeah, Daniel Jones had a tough game, but did you hear what Connor said? Yeah.
Get Jay in the mix as a guest.
Oh.
It depends.
He has legs.
Are we making fun of Connor Rogers or Rogers Conman?
No, Rogers Conman would be the co-host of
Saul Goodman.
Worst
Yes.
Lands. I'm taking it one step further.
man.
Now I'm saying no.
Oh, you just want to empty the clip.
Yeah, exactly. I'm asking if you want in.
Yeah, send the paperwork.
All right.
Yeah.
My people
Make sure you get
contact
paid
your
for this.
people.
Just like you said about that Crocodile Dundee, if you're going to sell out, and
big,
I will be selling, this is my boy right here, but I'm willing to sell out.
Okay.
I'll sell out.
He's not your boy that much if you're willing to sell out.
I would approve of that. Get the bag for it.
Look, I'm gonna slip him off a little something on the side.
While our fake podcast rivalry blows up for subscribers.
I'm telling you, Worst Lands. There's something there. I got to print T-shirts.
Cortland Sutton against the Falcons this week. And listen, last week, he's now got 3 straight games with 17-plus points. He was wide receiver 6 last week, Lawrence. Bo Nix kind of even hinted at this a couple weeks ago. He said, sorry for people that didn't start him in fantasy.
Read that right now.
Oh, damn.
Let's go.
Let's go.
He's free, baby.
You got an alert from the Bleacher Nation fantasy app, which
Yeah.
used to be Fantasy Live. Shane Steichen says the Colts are going back to Anthony Richardson.
This is what America wants, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. This 2
Colts
days
money
after
line.
Steichen saying Joe Flacco
Jets ain't
will start
winning no
versus the
more.
Jets. There you go. So that is from Kevin Bowen on Twitter, who covers the team. Anthony Richardson back in for the Colts. Here's my question, Lawrence. We don't know yet about Michael Pittman. Very quickly, let's talk about this. We don't know yet about Michael Pittman. Are you starting, other than Richardson, are you starting any Colt? They're playing the Jets. They're on the road. Richardson's been inconsistent. Downs has had it was mostly like on a broken play with Richardson. He's had success with Flacco. Are you starting Josh Downs? Are you starting any Colt that isn't named Jonathan Taylor?
I would start Josh Downs as a flex play still. I would, because I just don't think you can. If you got Josh Downs on the rock, like Adonai Mitchell, Alec Pierce, that's off the table right there. That's off the table. But Josh Downs he's shown that he could be good with either guy. Even on that long play, the ball still had to get there. Anthony Richardson still hit him on that one by the goal line. That was an inch away from catching 2 touchdowns. So I would say Josh Downs as a long shot flex.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
It's not going to be 8 targets,
the floor is
7.
Different.
It's not going to be
right.
7 catches, 70 yards. I would be shocked if it's that because you're going to run with the quarterback more now.
Yeah, there's still upside to down, but there's now much more downside, whereas I don't think with Flacco there was still very much a floor there. I will say that if there's one place, Connor, that you can attack the Jets secondary, it would be in the slot. I mean, obviously
so
with Reed and Sauce on
Michael
the corners.
Michael Carter is good, but
he is, but he's not the same level of those guys.
They play a lot of zone. I would think Downs is still viable in this game.
It could be, you could say it's a little fantasy-wise a little worse for Josh Downs, but most definitely better for Jonathan Taylor.
For sure.
So
For sure.
where
They're
I
going to
would
go run
with it.
heavy on the road at the Jets. It'll be interesting to see. I feel like this is going to be Jets were favored by 4.5. No, they were favored by 2.5, right? Jets are favored by 4. They're favored by 4.
That's a big line.
I think this gets to a pick 'em or maybe like 1.
But this too,
Richardson
now
hasn't been good.
Now you get again, Richardson's last time out, they dropped 3 touchdown passes. I don't know if he's benched if they catch them, but in the grand scheme of things, you got to deliver something. Like, have a game like Will Levis just had, statistically. Had that type of game, and people will forget about the tap out. You got to
Will
deliver.
Levis or Anthony Richardson, who you're starting in the League of Assholes?
Oh, Anthony Richardson.
Okay.
I want the ability to go 50 yards for a touchdown run. Like,
Jets are bad against running quarterbacks.
Yeah, I would rather have that, but I didn't feel bad about having Levis in there at all.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's viable.
He's up for trade if anybody other league in the League of Assholes. Actually, no, let me keep Levis in case they go put him back on the bench.
Steichen did say he's going to start the rest of the year.
Hey, look,
we
got to put Anthony Richardson jersey back on. Actually, you know what?
Not hiding anymore.
You know what?
We
Let him have a good.
We have Richardson kind of in the corner
right behind the
bars.
He used to be up there. Let him have a decent game. Then we gotta get the jersey.
Yeah, you gotta earn your way back.
You gotta earn your way back.
You
gotta earn your way back.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't just have preseason hype.
You guys mentioned it. Our last Eatin Good candidate is Alec Pierce against the Jets. He was a top 10 receiver last week, Matthew. This really comes down to if Michael Pittman is out again, can you start Pierce? Do you start Adonai Mitchell, or does the Richardson news kind of revert back to what we said? It's just Josh Downs, no one else.
That's what I think. I think it's Jonathan Taylor and it's Josh Downs. And again, the floor is lower for Josh Downs than it would be with Flacco. So again, I think he's a low-end wide receiver. He's on that 3-4 range. Right?
I don't even know if I would have went with Pierce even with Flacco, right? I would have probably chosen Adonai Mitchell. Pierce caught the 10-yard touchdown, 2 seconds left in the game. They was getting blown out. 33 of his yards came on that last drive where they're just kind of, going through the motion. Bills is like, we won already. So, but Adonai Mitchell, 94% of the snaps, 6 for 71, getting the ball at the, short intermediate areas of the field. That Alec Pierce is more of a go downfield type of guy. Adonai Mitchell is a guy who could work the whole field.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because I wonder if going back to Richardson is in essence, and you mentioned he said he's starting the rest of the year.
Yep.
So it's an indication that the Colts have come to their senses and been like, all right, Richardson's the future. We've got to see what we got out of this kid. We got to get him some reps. So is A.D. Mitchell. I mean, who knows how serious Pittman is? Do they shut him down for the year? How serious the injuries, I should say.
Yeah.
But they spent a second-round pick on Adonai Mitchell. And I know, Connor, you felt like he might be a little bit overdrafted, but still, this is
he can play, though.
Tons of talent.
Tons of talent, and so you just got to get him out there. And, he's earning targets at a pretty high rate in terms of, his targets per route run. And so just let the kid run more routes, right?
Yeah. The Colts should start to see what they have in this connection. Mitchell can stretch the field a little bit. He could really play at all 3 levels. He just needs refinement. And so does Richardson. So let them get the reps together.
1,000%.
Oregon's march to the college football playoff continues on Saturday night as the Ducks face an upset-minded Wisconsin team at Camp Randall Stadium. Coverage of the Big Ten Showdown begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. Last call is next. Find out what games we're betting early for Week 11. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Last call. We got your early line alert for Week 11 here. Lawrence, what do you like? You got a good money line pick for us this week?
Yeah, of course. I was going to go with your Jets on the alt line versus the Colts, but now I'm switching it. I'm going with the Colts now.
Wow.
They're starting Anthony Richardson. You know why? Because the Jets have problems going up against these dual threat quarterbacks. They just gave up 2 rushing touchdowns to Kyler Murray. Drake May ran for 46 yards against them a few
like a
weeks
quarter.
ago. C.J. Stroud, who don't even like running the ball, ran for 59 yards against them. Anthony Richardson, this is your time to get busy, young man. That's at plus 145 right now. Colts on the money line, and the Jets, they just in disarray right now. They struggling. They pointing the fingers which way. No more redlining. I'm going with the Colts.
Yeah, death, taxes, and you can run on the Jets.
I'm glad we got you off of that Jets alternate line.
Yeah.
I was going to do it, though, because
I
I felt like the Jets would have been able to have a defensive touchdown.
Against
and that'd
Flacco.
be the
That's fair.
difference against these teams. That'd be the difference in these games.
Anyway, the Jets' poor run defense, I feel like, should be a topic for Badlands. I'm just giving you a
Maybe
heads
the
up.
next one we'll sneak it in.
See what you can do. Write it down, throw it in the suggestion box, see if it gets anything here. This is going to be a true test. Philadelphia 3.5-point favorites against my Commanders on Thursday night. I think that's too much. Give me the Commanders plus 3.5. Yes, it's a little bit of a homer pick, but still, they just played the Steelers, to within 1 point. Yes, I get that the Eagles have been so great since their bye, but look who they've beaten. Cleveland, the Giants, the Bengals, the Jags, and the Cowboys. Honestly, only the Bengals was a real victory, and my Commanders beat them as well. And so I think after how disappointing that loss was, it'll be a true test about how the Commanders respond, but I think they respond in a big way. It's a weird offense, right? Dan Quinn's going to know the Eagles from his time with Dallas, but because of what Kingsbury's going to do, I don't think the Eagles are going to have enough time to prepare for Jaden Daniels. Give me the Commanders plus 3.5.
31% of the handle is on the Commanders, but 48% of the tickets are too. So that's going to be a pretty even one down the stretch here. Guys, I'm going Browns money line. They're underdogs against the Saints.
Yeah.
Money line's only minus 105, nothing crazy here. 59% of the handle is on the Browns, but 33% of the tickets. So Browns money line, I like Jameis revenge game.
Yeah, Jameis revenge game. I get it, the Saints, lucked out against the Falcons, but
Browns have some life.
Browns have had 2 weeks to prepare for the Saints and to give Jameis a revenge
Chubb.
game win. A revenge game win. All right, listen, it's closing time. You do not have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Lawrence, for Connor, and the entire cast of Worstlands, I'm Matthew Berry. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.